Irene's story begins in a small town in Czechoslovakia in the 1930s. She lived there with her father, who ran a lumber yard, her mother, who stayed at home with the children, an older brother, an older sister, and 3 younger siblings. During her childhood, Irene and her family lived a very normal small-town life until the Nazi Party began to take hold across Eastern Europe. In 1939, the Germans annexed part of Czechoslovakia. The Hungarian government followed suit and annexed the area where Irene lived. Hungary had already embraced many of the Nazi beliefs. Suddenly, Irene's Jewish family had become subjects of a very anti-Jewish government. They were Hungarian Jews. Almost immediately, things in Irene's town began to change.
Hungary joined alliance with Germany, and so everything became Nazified. But I did go to Hungarian middle school by this time, and that's when I was 12, 13, where we had to wear a yellow star on our clothes. And so, that was like a target, and certainly wasn't safe. It was a small farming town, and the 6th grade was the end of education. So our parents were very keen on sending us for more education. So as we got to be past 6th grade, by this time I was the 3rd one who was sent to the big city to commute. And I actually went on a train, which was most unusual. It was a one-track railroad town, and sometimes I was the only one getting on and off. And the farmers went by horse and buggy, wherever they needed to go. And so I was traveling for a while where the train was full of soldiers and crowded and all that. But with the yellow star, I remember for a while I would pin the star on instead of just sewing it on permanently. I'd pin it on and walk to the train because I wasn't afraid in my town with it. When the train came, I took it off and put it in my pocket. And then I would, in the big city where I had to walk from the train to the school, I didn't put it on because there I had no protection whatsoever, But this only lasted a few trips because once they stopped, they threw us out from school. There was no reason to go anymore. But it was a terrible thing because you were marked, you were a target.
The Nazis were slowly separating Jews from society, forcing them to wear a yellow star, banning them from schools, and using propaganda to portray them as the source of society's problems. Unfortunately, too many people were falling for it.
The farmers' young sons who suddenly had power, all they had to do is put on a swastika band on their arm, and they were like deputized. They were the law. And from other towns, these young guys would roam around and go to do harm to Jews. They'd pull out an older man from the family, they'd think it's a good sport, they'd cut his beard, and anything like that was permitted, and the police would stand by, and nobody felt secure anymore. One day I was coming home from visiting my grandparents with my father. I was on the train, and the train is a 5-minute ride, and these young hoodlums. See, my father had a beard, a small, trimmed beard, but beards were not popular. I mean, there wasn't, only Jewish men had beards. Today, that's different. And so on the train, they came up to him, a couple of them, and they started talking to each other like, well, what shall we do? Wouldn't it be fun to throw him off the train? And laughing and carrying on and beginning to poke him and things like that. Nobody in the train said anything. Nobody lifted a finger or a voice, I was like 12 and a half or something, and terrified. But looking out the window, I could tell we're approaching home, and that's exactly what saved my father. They were ready to throw him off.